أنا نميدا إذا بيتديس سيبوك إذا أنا قادي بيتديس إذا سيسندي.
There are two worlds, natural and manufactured, ancient and modern. Over the last 200 years, these worlds have collided, and the last bastions of the old ways have all but vanished. The African Rift Valley has long been known as the birthplace of our species. Its densely populated Gamo Highlands in southwestern Ethiopia have remained a haven of agricultural diversity and organic farming since the birth of the agrarian age 10,000 years ago. Here, human civilization and the natural world it relies on are still interdependent and intimately linked. It is in this fragile harmony that the people of the Gamo might be holding the keys to our own survival.
In our modern world, we've become gods controlling nature. And that's in large measure because in 1 century we went from 2 billion to 6 billion people. We've become this huge presence on the planet. And so all of a sudden, we do perceive ourselves as invincible. We can do anything. And that's where technology without limits has pushed us to this precipice of almost self-destruction, because we have viewed nature as simply something to be used for humans for economic growth and power.
As an ecologist, you hear all the time people talking about wild landscapes versus human landscapes. And one of the reasons that I just was so drawn to the Gamo is that the people living there have evolved along with that landscape for such a long time that it's a landscape in which humans are part of nature. When I got to the Gamo, the biggest surprise for me was how little this landscape has been touched by the past century. We would interview farmers who were 100 years old, and we'd say, well, what's the biggest change over your lifetime? And they'd kind of look at you funny and say, change? What? Which in this century is just mind-boggling.
I am Capo Kansa here, standing in southern part of Gamo Highlands. Everything in the world is not explored. The spirituality, people think that the earth is not speaking, the soil is not speaking, the sky is not speaking. But there is a kind of spirituality when the sky is roaring with thunderstorms and rain is coming and the clouds are rising, and there is an spirit in it.
Fundamentally, religious stories and cosmologies in particular have helped to really ground humans in this immense universe and give us this tremendous sensibility of the aliveness of the world around us, in the animal world, in the plant world, starting, of course, with indigenous traditions who knew this in very fundamental ways.
People believe that they are part of the nature, and that they don't think that they are dominant and that they can exploit everything exists on the environment. They want to coexist with the mountain, with the rivers, with the road. When they make a prayer, they always give thanks for the Creator. Then next to the Creator, they say thanks to the mountain. And they offer gratitude to the road they walked up to their home. And the forest they crossed inside. So this is to show that they are friends of the environment.
In the Gamo, they have a system of laws called wogas that have been developed over thousands of years to ensure their survival. A local elder serves as the custodian and enforcer of each woga. There's a woga for how to bless a planting and how to give thanks when harvesting crops. There's a woga for where animals are allowed to graze. There's a woga for which trees are to be cut down, and wogas that govern relations between people like marriage or disputes. The custodians perform rituals to give thanks to the earth for the resources it provides. For the people of the Gamo, their delicate balance with nature is ensured through these laws and rituals. If any one aspect is neglected, then the entire system is at risk.
Some pretty vocal evangelical Christian Protestant organizations have moved in and really created a lot of turmoil in this region. They started building churches right and left. Every community has a Protestant church, sort of not in any sort of traditional style, just sort of slapped up there very hastily. They've basically been doing what Christian missionaries do best, which is handing out a lot of Bibles, handing out a lot of seeds and food, and it's working, and a lot of people are converting, especially young people.
We Christians, we committed to obey what the Bible teaches to us. We see that people are worshiping other things as a part of God, but this is, ignorance. So we refuse that one when we understand the gospel.
In the past, the church was not so arrogant, but now the Protestant church, it wants to increase its members. When they preach, they make the traditional leaders to feel ashamed. They say that you are, demonic people, because they are convinced that to follow tradition means something to go to the hell.
You have a car. Car is not God for you. So trees and animals and whatever river, it's not God. We have to worship God. We have to use this for us. God created for us.
Not only is that tacitly opposed to a lot of traditional beliefs about how you should treat the landscape and how you should live your life, it's very vocally opposed to a lot of those things. They sing these really beautiful songs as they're harvesting, as they're working, and a lot of these church groups are sort of forbidden to use those. They're building churches on sacred landscapes. I've seen it be really incredibly disruptive to not only people's spiritual lives, but relatedly to people's sort of working lives and community lives.
The challenge, of course, is that indigenous peoples have had this very unique worldview of the aliveness of the universe, and by and large, the monotheistic traditions, the Abrahamic traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have suggested that God is above the world, a transcendent God, a creator God that orders and has a presence, but is lifted up out of the world. Now, removing God from nature, certainly many people would say, has desacralized the world and therefore opened it up for consumption and for abuse and for exploitation. There's some definite truth to that.
We in our lives are all about maximization. The maximization of profit is seen as this huge good, whereas that's not really the case there. No one's out to maximize. That's not really a concept. People are out to continue, to sustain.
We can say it is just two different worlds, and we are depending on nature here, and there people are depending on scientific funds.
Through science, the industrial world has developed technologies to maximize agricultural output. These pesticides and fertilizers were first used in the Green Revolution of the 1950s and 60s.
supermarket, symbol of the high standard of living today. These products come from farms and ranches despite distance and season. They are the result of a miraculous agriculture. Tremendous advances on the farm and in the marketing system have created this miracle. The miracle whereby agriculture has advanced more in the space of a single lifetime than world agriculture had in more than 7,000 years. Today, agriculture is going far beyond nature to produce new miracles for an even better, more abundant life.
I wasn't there for the first Green Revolution, but some of my colleagues at the Rockefeller Foundation were. And the story they tell is that the world was really concerned that Asia was going to hit a population bubble, and there was no foreseeable way to feed the population. And so there was really a concerted effort, sort of like a space program type, grand challenge to develop ways to allow Asia to feed itself. And those focused really on two principal crops, wheat and then on rice.
These crops really took off and really solved, for the time being, that population problem. Fed a massive amount of people on a small amount of land. That was what it was all about, was maximizing yield. And it worked, they maximized the yield, but the problem is that A, you have to have a very, very small genetic base in order to find that sweet spot, as it were. And B, if conditions aren't perfect for it, then it doesn't do very well. If there's variable conditions, some years it can fail entirely. So it set up a system where if you had all the inputs and you could set it up exactly right, you would maximize your yields and you would do great. But if there was any other circumstances, then you were worse off than you started.
Despite the detrimental effects of the first Green Revolution worldwide, and especially in India, international organizations and agricultural corporations are reusing these technologies and are preparing Africa for a new green revolution.
Here in Africa, we've got a problem. There's not enough food available to the poor. People are losing their lives over that problem on a daily basis. We feel that this is an overdue priority. Hunger in Africa cannot continue.
In 2006, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation formed AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. AGRA's goal is to fight hunger by bringing Green Revolution technologies to small-scale farmers. But not all African farmers are welcoming these new saviors.
Now, who are the proponents of the Green Revolution in Africa? Does it have its origin in Africa? The concept in itself is foreign. It's not like supporting the farmers to develop their own and grow with their technology. It's bringing in, grafting the foreign technology, grafting the foreign idea on the farmers.
If you look at this elder here, he has a lot of knowledge about herbs that are medicinal in this area. But he has no space to give that knowledge, to pass that knowledge to the younger generation.
People here in Africa, they know the solutions to their most pressing problems, especially of hunger and famine. But rather than be given opportunities to harness their knowledge, what we are seeing is that quick fix solutions are being formulated out there, like prescriptions in medicine, and they are brought and we are told, take this to deliver you.
To get to the core of AGRA, you need to unwrap several layers. You need to see who the players are, who have come out as philanthropists coming to help, but whose ultimate goal, we are sure, is not philanthropic.
We're aware that there's skepticism over whether AGRA is simply trying to pave the way for American businesses or businesses from other parts of the world. And I honestly don't know where that skepticism comes from, because if people would come out and see who we're working for, they would immediately realize that this is all about local. We work with local farmers, local technicians, local plant breeders.
I don't agree that by involving a handful of farmers, it's actually a farmer-driven process. If anything, this is or behind the scenes corporate-driven process.
Agra is about profits. It's about making profits for those who are producing the chemical fertilizers, the chemical sprays, and the improved seeds.
If Agra started a project like that here in this village, we are going to see reduced income for the people because they are going through banks, assisting banks to offer loans to farmers. So you go get a loan from the bank, you buy seeds, you buy fertilizer, and you buy chemical sprays. You go and plant. You have no control whatsoever about the climatic changes. So instead of rains, there is dry weather. The crops fail. So what happens? And you have a loan at the bank. So that means that you go dig deeper into your pocket. If you have a cow, you sell. If you have a goat, you sell so that you can furnish the loan in the bank. So rather than improve the livelihoods of the people, it's going to make them more deeply in debt.
I think the answer that we are often hearing right now to the challenge of food security in the future on a planet with soon 8-9 billion people, to just invest in more herbicides, pesticides, hybrid seeds, irrigation and fertilizers, clearly does not hold the full answer. First of all, because we have learned that that kind of high input agriculture has a very high price on the very productive capital that a farmer has: land, water, the resources that are around him or her.
In 2008, the United Nations Environment Program conducted a study comparing organic and conventional agriculture in Africa.
What we found is that particularly in East Africa, there were actually significant increases in yield. In fact, 128% increase in yield, and that is certainly outperforming traditional agriculture and even outperforming some of the modern, let's say, industrial agriculture.
According to the report, organic agricultural systems are making a significant contribution to the reduction of food insecurity and poverty in areas of Africa. The study found that average crop yield increased by 79%.
In many ways, this coming in of all this Green Revolution technology parallels the sort of coming of these evangelical Christian voices to the Gamo, in that taking the landscape in which you live and making it something that's external to you. And they're saying, you know, this landscape is actually designed for productivity, and it's not a part of your belief system, it's not a part of your sort of cultural heritage. It's this piece of land which is designed to feed you, which is sort of how we view our landscape in a lot of ways.
If we view the world as a machine, we become a machine. The machine mentality that has simply said the universe, nature, are mechanistic processes, that's brought us only so far, and that's exactly the crossroads. One of the things that we see now in our current economic crisis is that was in large measure driven by an abstraction of economics apart from ecology, apart from nature itself. It became a global casino, a roulette, just building on itself.
On a planet where nature has evolved over millions of years, we need to learn more about the principles that nature has developed to cope with crisis. And the simple answer is resilience. Resilience you get through diversity.
There's a massive trend away from diversity in commercial agriculture. I mean, of the 5 or 6 crops that feed most of this planet, we've gone from having thousands of varieties of those crops to maybe 2 or 3 that are really commercially produced. And those 2 or 3 varieties are designed to be incredibly productive, you know, to feed a lot of people, but it makes them very vulnerable to change, to make them vulnerable to pests, to disease, to outbreaks, because there's very little genetic diversity among them. So if one thing gets knocked out, all the corn in, you know, South America gets knocked out. The Gamo Highlands are considered a huge center of diversity for agricultural species. There's a lot of species which originated there or which have just been grown there for so long that they've diversified into hundreds of varieties there that don't exist anywhere else. So it's to places like the Gamo that people need to turn to sort of collect the genetic material for the crops that feed not just Africa, but all over the world.
Clearly, the Gamo Highlands are an ecosystem that is vital to our survival, but its precious agricultural diversity is inextricably linked to its cultural diversity. In just 300 square kilometers, there are 54 different tribes, and every year they gather to celebrate and preserve their cultural heritage at the Thousand Stars Festival.
Some of them put pawn of an animal, some of them with the skin, and some put on grasses and leaves. And I think that all shows that the connection of each group to the environment, to the nature. And all of the group have their own expression of connection to nature, although we can't understand the language they are singing.
It is not permitted among Gamos to take out whatever he likes from the ground. There is a limit. There is a limit. You are taking grasses which you need, you don't destroy others. You are taking trees for your consumption, not to destroy others. They want to pass the resource for the next generation.
Sustainable agriculture is holistic, and it addresses the needs, the spiritual, the cultural, the social needs of the person. So it's not like mining the land for today's or short-term benefits. We are looking into this renewable use of the land.
Agriculture, in a lot of ways, is the primary human signature on our world. That's how we relate to the earth more than any other way we do it. We shape it to help sustain us, and that's not something that's foreign, and that has to be, this horribly disruptive, unnatural process. It can be a very natural process. It can be a really integral part of our lives.
In 2008, 3 elders from the Gamo Highlands were invited to the United Nations to attend the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in New York City.
Nusate ison talo chimiri hai aiberi nuchi aiberi hai kanesha giri hai sikopses. Ya hesagi shagu odenna dize.
People who are looking at the relationship between spirituality and ecology are realizing that biodiversity ecosystems are being destroyed because Africans have severed their relationship between ecosystems and spirituality. It is very, very important for people to reintroduce that link, that relationship between themselves and the ecosystems, and then their spirituality becomes the key pillar in joining the two.
Many indigenous peoples have had this, what we would call traditional environmental knowledge about hunting or farming or planting or practices of the seasons, to bring in that universal power of the cosmos and bringing in that immediate power of nature itself. And part of what we have lost is we're trying to rely only on our own energy, but it's nature's energy that pours through us and which we need to draw on right now in our search for sustainable energies. It's spiritual as well as physical.
Asa adi shachaga sumuruna shukala yonda bana urkuzu gaitu bina mamitina utana mazge tana bele ulon tabase tana simon tabele landarina tana mazge makalino